Stephen, how about over at Department of Education? You all have been on this journey, as we like to call it. Tell us about the state of the state as to how things are going over there.
Yeah, and first I'd like to touch on this idea of the architecture. Almost 3 years ago now, when Sylvia Burns and the CIO Council actually came up with this wild idea and came up with, hey, let's look into, is it the right time at that time to explore zero trust networks? And that was an interesting distinction because the first request was, let's just really focus in on that layer three and see, what the art of the possible is. We pulled together several working groups, government focused, especially with our friends out at the NIST Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, ACT, IACT, ATARC. A lot of groups started pulling this apart. And particularly on the government side, we said, you know what? This is much bigger than layer three. And if we're going to do this right, we really have to talk about the whole 7-layer model. We got to touch every single element of it. That's not networks, that's an architecture. And that's how we landed on zero trust architecture versus something like zero trust network. We knew we had to evolve it to be more encompassing. At the department, we look at it and we look at the 4 big pillars, especially if you look at the ACT-IACT model. The NIST model aligns nicely and others break it out in different ways. But for us, it's 4 big pieces. We're looking at data. Both, do we know what those crown jewels are, and can we collect the data necessary from our fabric of sensors throughout the enterprise to know what's going on around us? We have ICAM. Identity is absolutely core to what we're doing. And for us, that's largely in our ICAM program. But there's other elements of identity that we're still looking at building out and how to, especially around non-person entities, how do we continue to evolve that space? And we have the trust engine, and NIST calls it the policy engine. That's an area where we're pushing hard, and we're looking at things like the Technology Modernization Fund as to how do we take some of the cool technology that's out there, AI, AML, robotic process automation, and bring it in from an enterprise perspective across the entire enterprise, which is frankly really hard to do. Lots of ZTA solutions out there do have elements of machine learning and AI built into that particular product space or service space, but is it enterprise wide and can it commingle with other things? Varying degrees of capability there. And then finally, there is that control fabric, the control plane. And that's another area of work for us that we're driving hard, probably the most nascent and on the horizon for us, because we just awarded EIS. We're getting lots of incredible technology through that service offering, software-defined network, perimeter, and WAN. All of that's going to be necessary technology along with some new ways of encryption. You bring it all together, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And I think if you look across the federal space writ large, you're going to see similar in terms of where folks at. Some folks are a little further ahead, especially in the control plane. Other folks are still trying to get their arms around, do I have an enterprise data lake where I can put all this great data and then use it to throw AML at it and eventually have AI make smart decisions?